Welcome, welcome. We got a great call for you today. Looks like people's audios are connecting as we're going right here. Look at all these realtors that are on time. Our Monday masterminds, we do them every Monday. Time block them out. Great to have you here live. We are going to be recording this. In fact, it is recording right now, which is great. The recording is awesome, so you can go back and take a look at it. It's going to be really great for today because we're going to be covering some objections, right? Some scripts, some dialogues, and we're going to be giving it to you from people that are in the trenches that are working right now, people that are actually out there talking to buyers and sellers and things like that. But here's the great part for you today. Do you have an objection that hits you from somebody that you just don't know how to answer? Like when they throw it and it pops out of their mouth, it makes you mumble, stumble, bumble, and puts you in a position where you're like, man, I wish I would have answered that better. Well, we've got some veterans here today that are going to actually help you with that. They're going to set you up in a position where you're going to be able to go back and rewatch this thing and practice it. And here's the great thing about our masterminds. They're a big smorgasbord. What I mean by a smorgasbord is you take what you like and leave the rest. So you can take something that one of these veterans is doing and you can adopt it for yourself. And that's going to be great. I think you're going to love that. And we're going to get going here in just one more minute. But while we're doing that, I want to make a commercial for next week before we get going on our topic. And I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you what we've got going on. See, Grow Global, what we are here is we are for all brokers, all real estate agents. And what we're talking about is growing your business globally. And so one of the things we do is for free, by the way, you can participate in these masterminds we do on Monday. In fact, today you're going to hear from Alex, Jared, and Stacey how to turn a no into a yes. Unveiling the art of real estate negotiations and objection handling scripts. It's going to be great. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, what are we doing next week? Well, you would scroll down the website of whygrowglobal.com. By the way, all these links will be in the chat. And you'll see next week, what are we talking about? Ready to boost your income? We're going to discover how contractor partnerships can elevate your business, right? So that's going to be great next week. This is going to be ways for you to grow your business. We have all kinds of resources. You're probably wondering, where do we record it? Well, we record it and we post it on our YouTube page. You're going to want to subscribe to. We have 187 subscribers. But take a look at this. 48 videos already, an entire library. And you can get inside there and use the search button to figure it out. So really great stuff like the NAR settlement. We had some great discussion on that, things like that. Okay, so we've got the web page, we've got the YouTube page, and we've got the Facebook page, Grow Global Mastermind Academy, and you can be invited to that. And we post everything in there. Also, we have 202 members on there and only 187 subscribe to the YouTube page. So it looks like some people need to do some subscribing. We also have an Instagram page. All right, let's get to it. We've got all that going. So today we're going to be talking to some champions here today. We're going to be talking to Alex, Stacey, and Jared. And we're going to be talking about objections. How do you handle objections when they come out? And I think one of the first things that's very important, and I'm going to start with Alex on this, is first of all, what is an objection and why does it paralyze salespeople? You hear the word objection, Alex, and it strikes fear in the heart of salespeople. What is it? How do you handle it? And I think I've got you muted, so we'll unmute you there. Oh, you're unmuted. Go for it, brother.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of times the objection handling piece, if you're a salesperson and you're going down the path of let's just put it in the position of our world, right? Like if you're a salesperson and you're working on selling a property, I think when the objection hits you, a lot of times when it's paralyzing, it's because you're working off a particular script or agenda that doesn't allow you to be educated or move with the process of the conversation. And one of the things that I think is the most important way when you're fostering the relationship with whoever you're being objected by. So if it's a for sale by owner, or if it's an expired listing, or you show a client a house and they're not interested in buying it and they want to wait till interest rates comes down, things like that. I think a lot of time from the consumer's perspective, if you're the agent, you're helping the consumer, they're telling you no because they may be unsure, they may not have enough information, they may want to have more dialogue outside of that decision-making window that you're working. And from the agent's perspective, it's your job to ask more questions. And one of the things I wrote down in my notes, and I've actually done a presentation on this, And it's not just asking more questions, but it's asking better, more targeted questions to help that consumer get over the hurdle that they're facing. And so when somebody tells you something like, no, not right now, or I want to, put interest rates in place, what I always like to do is I like to focus on getting more of an understanding from your buyer or your seller or whoever it may be. So one stretch of lingo that I always use is help me understand this. So if it's I want to wait for interest rates to come down before I'm in a position to purchase a home, I would say something like if you're renting your property, right? Yep. So your interest rate on your property is 100%, right? Yep, yep. Help me understand what waiting is going to put you in a position to be able to do. And then they're going to tell you what lack of education they're facing or what information they're lacking. And then you get to help steer and direct them and help educate them on the process moving forward. So I think a big part of the process is building the relationship with the person that you're working with. It gives you more leverage and more leeway to ask those questions. And typically, the better relationship you have with somebody, the questions that you're going to ask are going to get better answers from that person on the other side providing the objection. So those are some things that I think are really important when you're working with somebody that's giving you objections. If it's the buyer you can't get over the hump or the expired listing on the phone that you may ask a question too early in the process, you haven't earned that relationship. So you need to make sure that you're doing relationship building practices with those people as your process moves along. So I'll cut it right there, and then we can introduce Jared, and he could talk a little bit, and then we could go into some dialogues with the rest of the group.
I love that, Alex. I think the main point that I got out of it, what you're saying is great, is we don't answer the objection by telling them something. We answer the objection by asking them a better question to have them pull out of them and walk them down a path of understanding of where they need to be to get into their pain point and things like that. So I love that. Great point on that. Education and understanding is what I'm trying to do. And so that question, I wrote it down. Help me understand. You're trying, that puts you on their side instead of a lot of times when you're facing an objection and you try to overcome the objection. A lot of agents put themselves in a controversy, right? They're going head to head with the person versus saying, "Hey, I'm on your side. Help me understand." I love it. That's a great
Well, I think real
question.
quick, I want to add this
Yeah,
because I think you nailed it on the head. Like, if we're supposed to be the trusted advisor of the person that we're working with, and that's a buyer or a seller, and they're telling you, I'm not comfortable moving forward with something. If you don't have the understanding as to why they're telling you that, and you're caught off guard or you're paralyzed, it's because you, as the agent, don't have the information you need to help them move to whatever hurdle that they're going to face next. And so asking those questions or saying, help me understand, or I totally understand what you're feeling right now, and I have a lot of respect for it. What has you feeling this way? Well, and then they're just tell you everything. And I think oftentimes the people that we work with, if you're telling them all the time, they feel like as a realtor, man, they're working on a particular agenda to get me to do something. But if
right.
you're slowing things down and you're asking them the question and you're trying to make them understand, hey, look, I'm on the same team as you. We're working together and we have one common goal here. And the common goal is to help you accomplish this. Well, that process becomes a lot easier when you're working with them. And they start to look at you more as a trusted advisor and somebody who's in their corner, opposed to somebody that has an agenda that they're working off of, which is, one of the perceptions, the negative perceptions that we have in the industry amongst the handful of poor realtors that can tend to be out there.
Yeah, we're not salespeople because nobody likes a salesperson. So I love that, Alex. Yeah, get on their side on the same team. So I love it. Jared, we're going to go to you next on that. So objections, right? You've been crushing it. You're absolutely killing it out there, and you're newer in the industry. Tell everybody a little bit about your ideas on objections and on a general sense. And everybody who's watching this, by the way, just so you know, we're going to get to some specific ones. And I want you guys to come up with your best ones because we're going to play Stump the Panel, by the way. We're going to have you throw it out there and we're going to want to hear it. But Jared, tell us a little bit about objections and your mindset on handling them.
Yeah, no, this is great. So the first thing you got to recognize when you get in the business of real estate or whatever sales position you're in is rejection is always part of the business. So accepting that early on in your career is going to be able to create opportunities from being prepared versus not prepared. And then kind of understanding kind of what Alex hit on, understanding why they're saying no, and then being able to understand that, resonate with that, and letting them know it's a common objection that creates a little bit of balance and trust is kind of what I like to look at. And then specifically isolating that concern or why they're saying no, so that when you can solve that, everything else is ready to go on the other side. So if you can isolate the one concern they have and they're good on all other fronts, the minute you solve that objection, it's a no-brainer in their minds. I think a couple other things that are vital in the process of handling objections is understanding the audience or the person that you're talking with. I think, just using like a DISC profile, for instance, a D, you're going to handle that situation completely different than you are a person that's an I, that's social and conversational.
Hey,
Obviously,
Jared, real quick for people that don't know the DISC profile, give a 30-second commercial on that, where they find that, how they learn about that.
love it. Yeah. If you guys go online and just search DISC, it'll give you a breakdown of the differences between people's personalities. So your Ds are going to be your direct to the point type of people. Your Is are going to be more social, conversational, laid back. Your S's, those are the types of people that are going to need options. So if you're going on a listing presentation and you're dealing with a person that's an S personality, give them multiple structures or multiple options for them to choose from to make them feel more comfortable in the situation. And then your C's are going to be the numbers, data type people that you're going to want to show and present actual facts to. So I always have kind of an idea of what that client might be in those 4 categories. And then I'm always going to tailor my answer or my direction based on that.
Love it. Right. Spoken like a true champion. You're killing that stuff. So great. Anything else you want to add before we move on to Stacey? And then we're going to get to some specific objections.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'll let Stacey take it from here.
Great.
Jim, you're muted.
Muted. There we go. So I said Stacey started her business in 1997. Back in the 1900s, we started a real estate business. And go ahead, Stace.
So one of the things I would probably add is keep in mind too, objections are not no's. No's are no's. Objections are when someone's firing objections at you, they're interested, whether it's buying or selling. You don't get objections if they're done with the conversation or they're done with the topic. So take them as a positive. Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing that I would add to what the guys have already talked about.
Did you want to share? Did you have a slide you wanted to share?
I do, but I don't know if we want to take, these were just the ones that I personally, because I'm in production.
Start with one of yours, and then we'll go to Jared and Alex. Did you come up with them? Because I bet if you've got the objections written down, other people are hearing the same thing. Let's go through them.
All right, let me see if I can find it here.
One thing while she's looking for that I love that Jared said is isolate the one concern and boil down to it. I love that. Get into their head and find out what it is. Okay, beautiful. This is perfect.
Yep. So these are just ones that I'm finding on the streets. I don't know if we want to run with these or if we want to take some from our.
Yeah, let's take a cut. These have got to be some common ones, and then I'll watch the chat for people to put in there some objections that they have. Go ahead.
So I can do the first one with the condition of the home. In our market, and I'm assuming it's in this way in a lot of markets, a lot of our sellers have a lot of equity from the past couple of years, but they don't have a lot of cash. So this is one. I was just in a home yesterday, and literally she looked at me and said, if you tell me to fix something that it's going to cost $5, I don't have that in my bank account right now. Now, obviously that's an extreme, but it was a real conversation that I had with a seller yesterday, but yet I had her home priced out at $450. She only owes $222,000. So common objection, maybe not to that extreme. And one of the things that we've done in our market is I told her not to worry about it, that I have, trusted contractors that actually can come in, do the work and get paid on the settlement statement. That's one of the ways that I overcome that objection if they have the equity in the home, and just making those relationships. And yeah.
Jared, Alex, you have anything that you do with that when the seller says, hey, I don't have money to fix anything in the home? What do you have? Do you have a tool or system that you guys use on that one?
Yeah,
Go
ahead, Alex.
ahead, Jared. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say I always try to look at the financing option of potentially pulling home equity line of credit or getting deeper into what are our actual solutions to getting them the cash in the short term to fix the issues. And if that's not an option, then we can go down the path of XYZ. But that's kind of my first hurdle is let's see if there's an option to get financial backing to make these updates in the short term.
Yeah, because a lot of sellers think they got to have the house perfect before they can list it. How about you, Alex? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, we would. Yeah, in that instance, I'd probably price it out on a tiered scale. Hey, look, if you do nothing as your house sits today, I could probably get you a cash offer today for $375,000. Would that be of something of interest to you? And if she's like, well, $375,000, can you help me understand what that means? Is likely where she's coming from, that seller. Look, I could have this house closed for you in 7 days with this, this, and this. There's not going to be this. There's not going to be these hurdles. You have this many people walking through the door. Sometimes that path of least resistance is what that seller needs. And so, Stacey, I think in that instance, you're probably asking more questions to understand where's she going? What is the most important thing to you? So, if you walk in and you say, hey, I think your house is priced at $450,000 if we get it ready to go, maybe that's not the most important thing to the seller. And if she doesn't have $5 in the bank and she's lived there for a really long time, selling is likely a very emotional and strenuous process for her. So sitting that seller down and maybe think of it like you're in the home, you're sitting across the table. How long have you lived here? Tell me about this. Tell me about, and you're starting to show them that you really care about them. And so then when you find out what the most important things, it could be ease of sale. It could be, I need this sold as fast as possible. And whether I make 150 or 200,000 or 125,000, I don't care. And believe it or not, that is the case. If you can make the other list of things that are the most important thing to that seller, you can accommodate. So working through those lists of getting the understanding, that would be an instance of, tell me this, what is the most important thing to you over the next 60 days as we get ready to put your house on the market?
Help me understand what is most important to you.
Help me understand the direction we should go.
Love it. Stacey, the second one. We'll go in the same order. Stacey, Jared, Alex. You're muted.
Yep, I got it. Fear of being homeless, inventory shortage, or a double move. That is a very big situation here. So one of the things,
They sell their house too fast. I'm going to sell my house too fast. I don't want to put it on the market yet. I want to find the house I want to move into first. Yeah.
Yep. So one of the things, Jim, if you're thinking about selling, that is a very real possibility, especially if the best offer needs the house quickly. But keep in mind, we do have we've made connections in our market where we have short-term rentals that we can make this very seamless for you, where you really don't have to do a double move because we can do pod storage. But also in our market, and this is what, if we price right and we have multiple offers, sometimes the highest offer is not the best offer. Maybe we take one that allows us to do seller prolonged possession, where we can get a 60 or 90-day possession period afterwards. So.
Great. I love it. How about you, Jared? What would you add to that one? Somebody says, I'm terrified to put my house on the market because I know it'll sell tomorrow and I'm going to be stuck double move.
Yeah. One thing that's becoming common in our market, especially with the shortage of inventory is, and I've kind of went about this in a couple ways with a couple clients, and it's like looking at it from the perspective of, is the financial piece the big motivation, or is it the emotional piece? For instance, with this scenario, and the minute you kind of approach them potentially doing a sale contingent upon finding suitable housing, for instance, where they're going to list their house, but it's contingent upon them finding something else within 30 days. And you tell them, hey, that scenario may reduce your seller net by $10,000, $15,000. Then the tone of the conversation changes and it becomes money driven. So I think giving them options, they'll typically kind of go back to the financial piece, but that's just something that we've seen, just the contingent upon suitable housing. And I think it's a pretty good tactic, especially for listing agents. If they're not aware of that situation or haven't used that before, it's pretty beneficial.
Yeah. A trusted advisor or fiduciary has options for people and then they get to choose their best choice. Great answer, Jared. Alex.
Yeah, I would approach this because that one of the fear of being homeless, right? Like fear. And fear creates paralysis. And I mean, look, if we all wrote on a whiteboard what our buyer and seller pipeline was, how many people in that pipeline are afraid to do anything? And you're like, man, if I could find them a house, I could get their home on the market. Or if I could get this, I would do that. And so one thing I've written down on my sheet here, it's facts tell, stories sell, right? So how many stories do we as agents have where somebody's come to us? Stacey, you sell truckloads of houses, where this is a very common objection that I've heard from a lot of my clients and friends. And here are some stories of what we've done in the past. Which option sounds the best to you? That to them is telling them your fear is justified and incredibly reasonable. We work with people that tell us this all the time. And here's 3 options. Which path sounds most conservative or the most aggressive to you, that checks all the boxes of what's most important? And what people will typically say, like Jared had said, they're going to steer you down a path. I always tell people, look, I think the most effective thing in this instance is to create a home buying process and a home selling process as 2 totally separate transactions. When you commingle them together with contingencies like that, you give a little bit of leverage everywhere. Would you be opposed if I was able to find this, that, and this to make your process better? You could buy separately, sell separately, thus maximizing your experience. How's something like that sound to you? You're then taking and you're presenting these options to them and you're letting them choose. And, like Jared said in the beginning, like folks they want options. And if there's a fear tied to something, it's typically because they don't know that there are options. There are so many people that don't know about bridge loans. They don't know about home equity lines of credit that can be used as down payments for the next purchase. There are lenders now, I'll tell you this, like whenever we have challenging financing pieces for buyers, I always call Success Lending. They have outside of the box, unconventional ways to do financing for our buyers. I'll say something like, if I was able to talk to a lender that could get you something a little different here, I know that you were denied by somebody else, but would you be opposed, or would it make you upset if I were to bring somebody else to the table that could help you accomplish this? Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. All of a sudden you go from somebody that helps me in a real estate transaction to somebody that cares and a trusted advisor that's a true professional. And somebody put something in the chat about signing buyer agency agreements. That's what makes you valuable. That's why people pay you. And so those are the things, it's that knowledge that we have that we're then presenting to them through the stories of the transactions that we do all the time.
Love it. Kelly's iPhone. We don't know your last name, Kelly. We'd give you credit, but we're going to call you Kelly's iPhone for now. She says we use a home choice contingency, post-settlement occupancy, bridge loan, or new construction as options when the seller doesn't want to be homeless. New construction, right? People can do new construction and they don't have to be homeless. They can time it just right. So great stuff on that, Kelly. Stacey, let's go with the 3rd one on your list.
Oh,
These are all good.
One thing I would add too is listening to Alex and Jared talk. And if you haven't picked up, you need to have these connections in place, because part of giving solutions is to make sure you have an affiliate partner that you trust. Find the lenders, find the maybe short-term housing and stuff like that. They're out there. So it helps your credibility that when you're giving these solutions, you also have people that you trust that you can connect them to. I think that's huge.
And I want to point this out, Stacey, by the way, if you guys are on this mastermind, every agent on here who's on here is a like-minded agent like you. If you're somebody who's newer and you get an objection, you don't know how to handle it, hit one of us up and say, hey, how would you handle this objection right here? And we'll give you an idea of what it is. That's the idea behind the mastermind, is all of us together can make more money. Okay, Stacey, go ahead.
So not losing their current low rate to buy at a higher rate. I'm getting this a lot, and literally the conversation I'm having is that the higher rates right now are a short-term impact on the whole equation, the whole big picture. They really want to, and I hit the fact that they want to capitalize on the equity that they have in their home. And again, just like Alex said when he was just talking, maybe we take and roll that equity and look at some creative financing for a short-term time frame while they can capitalize on this amazing equity, because it's just record-breaking equity here in our market. So I always reiterate that higher interest rates are a short-term impact on our long-term solution.
And when you say short-term impact, what you're letting them know also is that we can always refi you later to a shorter term, not back out to 30 years, which actually, when you do the math on it in the long run, can actually save them money over the entire course of the term. If we refi you later to a lower rate and a 20-year term, we can knock years off your mortgage. So great point on that. How about you, Jared? What do you say? Somebody says, man, I've got such a great rate right now. I want to capitalize on my equity, but I don't want to lose my rate.
Yeah, kind of like what Stacey said, probably the most common objection I'm facing right now in the market. I think the biggest driver when I'm having these conversations is, why are you even considering moving? What is the driver? Is it a family situation? Are you having another kid? Is it a divorce? What is the main things that are driving the decision? And then hitting back on those decisions as to, okay, if it is that you are expanding and growing your family, then it's just not feasible to live in the current house that you're in. You're making it a sacrifice in one sense that will pay off in the long term. So I think it's really understanding the true problem that they're facing and why they're wanting to move, and then kind of hammering that on the head in the conversation.
I love that, Jared. Finding out what is the consequence of you staying in this position. Is it an undesirable position? Is it a need, or is it a want? So
That's
really
what
drilling down, as you said that earlier, boiling down on that. But go ahead, Alex.
No, that's what I just wrote that down as Jared was talking about it. And it's finding the seller or the buyer that needs to move versus the one that wants to move. The one that wants to move has an objection to every solution that you continue to bring to them. And oftentimes you'll find yourself showing them an over excessive amount of properties, or it's the seller that, a topic we have on here is overpricing, or, overpricing your property. It's like, does your motivation match the opportunity to be able to accomplish what the main goal is here, right? So when we're talking about this, I don't want to lose my interest rate. I think a fair question to ask is, Mr. Seller, when you purchased the home, did you buy the home because of the interest rate that you were offered, or did you buy the home for a specific need that forced you to move into this home? Well, typically the interest rates were a byproduct and a secondary thing. Everybody it's payment driven. That's how we are as consumers. When we're buying properties, what does everybody say? What is my payment? It's not,
Right.
what is my interest rate going to be? So if I go to a car dealership and I'm going to buy a car, it's what's my payment? And so while this is going on, what I would do in this instance is I would say, look, here's what your payment is today. If we were to sell your property for this price, you got this equity to roll into the next property that alleviates the pain that you're telling me, whether it's your house is too small or your house is too big. Here's what your payment looks like on this. We could actually put you into a different loan product, a 15-year mortgage, a 20-year mortgage, or something like that, that helps you accomplish this. Like what you said, Jim, you could go to the idea and say, you actually pay less interest over the life of the loan if you do this. Is that something that's of interest to you? Like those types of questions and that information, I think if there's anything we're helping you guys understand right now as listeners on this call, it's that it's information that you can then help somebody understand. They may not know what an interest rate is today. They may think it's 6. They may think it's 8. They may say, oh, it's 7.25 today. Is that a lot? Why don't you go ask your parents when they bought their home what their interest rate was? But it's not, the interest rate is not the relevant factor here. It's the payment that you're going to be. What do you pay as a tenant? What do you pay in your current situation? As you get that information, again, it goes back to the idea in the very beginning, asking more questions, the more information that you have, you can then go back to them to help them go, actually, you know what? You're right. My payment now is $1,000. My payment will be $1,400 in my new house, but we have a baby coming and we don't have room, and we're going to put the newborn baby in the closet. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's not reasonable. And so you help them understand what they can have by some sort of compromise. And then additionally, when you're helping someone sell the property, if you were able to sell the property for X price and net this much money, what price do you become a seller? That's a great question that you could ask. They could say, here's a question you could ask somebody. At what price would you be willing to sacrifice your low interest rate and sell your home? They could throw you any number in the world. And if that number is reasonable, you may go, oh, wow, Mr. Seller, you'd be pained to know the house across the street sold for this, and your house is way nicer than that. Really? Another one is, if I were to bring you an offer for this price, would you consider moving? Well, where would I go, or what would I do? And then you go into all the other objection handling things that we've discussed.
And keep in mind too, Jim, I would add, obviously this is going to work with everybody, but especially if they're selling their first home, take a look at the property. It might be that you can switch their mind and create a lot of first-time investors too. If it can become an income producing property,
Oh, that's great.
that money there could make up the difference on the new home. I mean, that's the cost of rental rate here in our market is insane.
Yep. We kept our first couple, our first houses that we had as rentals versus pulling the equity out of them and using them just because of the different loans that were available. We're able to rent it for way more than what the payment was. So that's great. Yeah, that's a great point. Jennifer Eastburn, you had a question from Sarasota. She said, what was short-term language for a great rate? Jennifer, if you want to unmute and describe your, I don't know if that's a statement or if that's a question you're asking on there, but we'd like to answer it for you. If you have the ability to unmute and go ahead and ask us what you're asking there.
Yeah, sorry, no, what Stacey said, her objective, the short term, said that great rate is just a short term, and I can't remember. I was trying to write it down, but I'm driving,
So it was a short-term impact on our long-term goals. And I would just combine that with what Alex and Jared said, especially if you know someone, like they said, they're having a baby, if they can roll that equity and you start creating a vision of what they can buy, not what they're losing. Yeah, so short-term impact on long-term goals.
Short-term impact on long-term goals. We ain't getting any younger, basically. Time is going to continue rolling regardless of where. One thing that I will add on this interest rate thing is, look, perspective is everything for people. Of course, when you're looking at 3% rates, the rates today suck. But remember, there was 26 straight years, 26 straight years where the interest rate was 8.5 or higher. Remind them of that. So when you tell people that, you can ask them, so are the rates when they're in the 7s, are they bad or are they actually really good historically? And let them answer. What were you going to say, Stace?
So I think it's okay to use experiences too. I know, and I'm sure you guys have also had people when the rates first started climbing, when we went from 3 to 4 to 5, I had buyers that were pausing at 5 and 6% because they thought the rates were going to come down.
Right.
And I've literally met with them each year because the rates aren't coming down. And not only are they not coming down, but the prices of the homes have gone up the whole time. So they've really, it's definitely good to bring up case scenarios.
And rates will never be 3 and 4% again. You will wait until your next life, maybe when you're reincarnated one day as something. They're never going to go back to that. So they can just get that out of their minds. Well, you see 5s and 6s maybe, but you're never going to see 3 and 4 again. It's just they were artificially lowered to that, and they're impossible to run that low in a healthy market. All right, so how about this? Go ahead, Stace, number 4.
Timing the market to maximize their equity. I don't get that one a lot, but I get it occasionally. Just because appreciation value is going up rather quickly. I should say actually in our market, we're starting to see it actually calm down a little bit, but I just use data. You know, now it's always the time to sell is now. Yeah, so it's, I don't know if anybody has a
How about you guys? You ever hear that for Jared or Alex? People want to time the market to maximize their equity when they're selling?
Yeah, I hear that. I think the biggest thing that I try to push is understanding why they want to maximize, whether they're selling for the sole purpose of selling and not buying something in the future. Because I think oftentimes people get caught up in selling in the hot market. Well, then they have to realize, oh, well, now I have to go buy something in the hot market as well. And then now you're potentially overpaying, even though you maximize on your sale. So realizing that potentially the best time to buy and sell are 2 different markets, and relaying that to them will often kind of change their perspective on potentially selling in the hot market if they have to buy.
Yeah, are you a move up buyer or are you a downsizer? I mean, what are you? What are we doing here? And that overpaying, Jared, I don't want to overpay. Really, the idea with that is, you know, how long are you going to be in the house?
Yeah.
Can you overpay? Yes, if you're going to be in it a year or 2. But if you're going to be in this thing 3, 5, 8, 10 years, history has shown us you're not going to overpay, no matter what you pay for it, right? How about Alex? How about you? Timing the market. Hey, I want to time the market. I don't know if it's the right time because I'm trying to maximize my
Yeah,
equity.
look, I think it's like Jared said, understanding the main goals of the seller in that instance, and then where, look, they may be, if somebody called you in November and said, "Hey, I got to sell my property. I'm moving to Florida and I got a rental set up down there." It's probably in their best interest to wait until, in our market, March, April, like it's a great time to put your house on the market then. But it is educational to share with them that, look, that may be the best time traditionally to put your house on the market. But if you're putting the house on the market then, and everybody thinks it's the best time, that's what everyone thinks. So you're one of 10 going on the market instead of maybe one of 3 or 4, less options for the buyer to pick from, maybe different buyer urgency. And I've always told sellers this: if somebody's walking in your door in November and December to purchase a home, they're about as serious as they can be. If you got to take your boots off and put your wet socks on after stepping in snow and all that stuff, you need to move. Those are the people that you want buying your house. And look at the number of mutual releases in your market. Pay attention to the back on the market listings right now. That's because it's people rolling through open houses, getting emotionally attached to something, and then going, just kidding. I probably went a little too fast. So look, again, it's just the stories that you could tell to tell the consumer.
I love the words feel, felt, found. Anybody else use that? When somebody has an objection about something, you say, understand how you feel. I know others have felt that way, but here's what they found. They found that waiting did not maximize their equity. It actually put them in a position where they didn't get to maximize it. And you can tell stories with that. But feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Others have felt the same way. Now you're on their side. And then you can explain with the story, here's what we have found in our many years of doing this. And if you haven't been doing it for many years, here's what my mentors or business partners have found from things that they've done, right? So feel, felt, found. How about the last seller one we have on the list here, Stacey? By the way, everybody out there, get your stump the panel objections ready, because we're getting ready to go. We're going to do buyers after this last seller one, and then we're going to have you guys fire away some stuff. Go ahead, Stacey, the last seller one.
Overpricing and upset at a list offer or not having multiple offers. I think this is just setting buyers up or sellers up. We have a pricing strategy and let them choose. We just had a listing go up where they went against what our advice was. When we get our pricing, our comps, if this one I showed, it should have been listed at 300 because comps came in between. He wanted to price at 325, and we got this exact question from him: why do I not have multiple offers? He didn't have an offer at list. He wanted to know why he didn't have multiple offers. And after a couple of days, so setting the expectations up front, had he listed where we would wanted him to have listed, he would have definitely have had multiple offers. So I think that just comes with setting up the expectations and letting them choose how they would like to go. In our market, you can't underprice a home. The buyers are going to take it. The market's going to take it wherever it's going to go. And I'd rather have more eyeballs in the game to create that multiple offer situation. And so
they're going to eBay it right up and bid that price right up, and sometimes even higher than if you had listed higher. You didn't get as many eyeballs. So it's great. How about you, Jared, Alex? Overpricing, people that want to overprice the home, or they're upset because, hey, we only got a list offer, or we didn't have multiple offers. You hear any of those?
Yeah, Stacey nailed it with managing expectations. I think that's 95% of it. One thing I like to do with my sellers in a situation is, whether it's looking at the specific type of property, I think especially kind of Stacey said, like if it's a common property that's hit the market and it's in a decent area, 9 times out of 10, that property is going to get to the price it's worth. You're not going to underprice it. But one thing I've noticed in some of the areas around here is if you do have a unique property and there are a few buyers for that property, yeah, maybe strategically listing it a little higher and letting it sit for a couple weeks, knowing that, hey, you're not going to sell first weekend, but you do have the potential to maximize your investment by pricing it higher if it is a unique property and not something that you see every day. So
Some of this with the seller side is it's a different dialogue, and it's probably a call that we could host here called pricing your property. But look, like overpricing is one thing, but overpricing with poor motivation, I think, is what gets a lot of realtors in trouble. If you take a listing with price really high and motivation high, you can work with that because the motivation is what will ultimately drive that price to the level of what it needs to be. But if you take an overpriced listing with somebody who has a low level of motivation, it's a recipe for failure. And so you can't set that person up for expectation no matter how much work you do. They're not going to listen to you because they don't care, because their motivation doesn't drive any of it. So I tell folks on our team, high motivation, high price, you could still take that listing and you can work with that person. Set the expectation of what the overpriced listing really means and what the long term of that looks like. But again, this is all the work you do up front. This is the conversation that you have sitting in your client's living room saying, let me help you understand what this looks like. That way, when those things happen, I'm sure Stacey was able to say, remember when we talked about this, that, and the other? This is what we talked about. This is why you're not selling over list. And what true market value probably should show your seller is that that house is probably worth about $310,000. So the 3.25 list price sale that you're about to get technically is over ask. What do we want to accomplish here? How much money you want to get? You said 3.25. I just got that for you. What's the problem? Help me understand. What are we looking for?
Yeah, love it.
Could have listed it for $1 and could have listed it for $1 and sold for $2, and you would have got an overpriced or overlist offer. Is that what you want to accomplish?
Right.
I think like that's some of the conversation that you could be having.
Let's go into buyers, and if you guys have some of your stump the panel objections on there, either hold them and get ready to do them verbally, or you can type them in the chat. Buyers, Stacey, interest rates. Buyers are saying, I want to wait because interest rates are bad.
I was going to say we've talked about them a lot, but I think the only thing on the flip the script for as buyer is you'd be surprised that when you, especially first-time home buyers and even second-time home buyers, they're worried about a price difference of $400 or $500 a month. But if you ask them and challenge them to do a budget on where they could save that money, because the best investment of their hard-earned income is in a house. It's not in Starbucks every day. It's not in going out to eat twice a week. It's not. And so challenge them to find that money and start building equity in the home. And then again, short-term impacts when the rates come down, refi.
Yeah, you know, a $5 coffee every day and an $18 lunch every day is $23 a day times 20 is $460 a month that's keeping you out of your home. You can pack a sandwich and, you know, do a 25-cent coffee. You know what I mean? It's how bad do they want it? Comes down to it. Jared, interest rates are too high right now. Maybe I should wait till they come down. That's a buyer. That's what it sounds like in my head. That's the whiny voice I hear in my head. Go ahead.
I get it all the time. I think you have the one objection that you can handle from someone that already owns a home and then is stepping into another property. What's the driver? What's the motivation? But I think this kind of more applies to that first-time home buyer. And hey, why should I buy now when the rates are at 7-8%? I think sharing value and showing the value of home equity and home ownership in the long run, it will drive the decision every time. I think personal stories, telling them how it changed your career, how it changed your life, when I'm sure everyone on this call has bought their own properties and seen the value of that. So I think their minds immediately go to interest rates when they don't see value. So if you can show value immediately, that's going to be the driver in the conversation.
I like it. Alex.
I would discuss, again, I said this earlier, I'll say it again. Are you buying based on an interest rate, or are you buying based on what your payment is and what your full cost of the house is? Like, let's talk about what the real cost is associated with this. And what you could look at is you could show them, there's actually a video that we did on here on the Grow Global. It's on our YouTube channel, and it's called The Cost of Waiting. And you could show them, hey, look, we're projecting house prices to increase this much. So every single time the interest rates drop 0.5 point, X million buyers enter the market, which increases competition. If you got a lower interest rate but had to give up the ability to inspect the property or the requirement to guarantee an appraisal, which are two things down below that we're going to talk about, would you be willing to do that? Typically, they just don't understand. So if you can break down the payment, we have a buyer on our team who wanted to put some things on hold because he wanted rates to go down. But if the rates go down, let's just call it 0.5%, with the price point that he's looking at, with what houses are going to increase to, he's likely not even saving any money. and he may be paying less in interest over the life of a loan. Very few people care about that. They care about what their monthly payment is every month, round and round, and am I paying fair market value for a home? That's what the consumer cares about. So helping them understand those things is super important from our perspective, especially when it comes to interest rates.
Great. So while we're on interest rates, Laura DiPaolo put a couple really good ones in here. I've actually seen these going around on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that in the chat. These are great ones, Laura. I'm glad you put these in here because the young people, which I think I saw a NAR statistic the other day, millennials were 35% of the home purchases in 2023. Millennials, right? And so they are saying this. Laura, so here, we're going to go to the panel on this to hear what you guys have to say on this. But Laura says, so yes, interest rates were much higher for our parents. However, they also did not deal with high inflation too. What would you say? Because I've seen that around that fallacy going around on the internet,
I
poisoning
think this
the
is a
brains of the young people.
perfect
Go ahead.
one for you to answer, Jim, since this is something that you follow all the time.
I said, you know, our parents' interest rates paid 17%. Some of them we're less than half of what our parents paid in interest rates. And if you weren't around in the 70s, you don't know what inflation is. Inflation was way higher than it is right now. So people, they're getting bad information. But here's what I would do with this, Laura. This is where you got to have a good lender partner, I believe. Your lender needs to partner up with you on this, and you need to sit down and do the math for them. And you need to find out from them what they're paying in rent. What are you paying in rent every month? Money that you are just lighting on fire. Let's do that. Let's say it's $1,800 a month, okay? But the payment on their $200,000 house is going to be $2,000 a month. Let's just say that's the number. I don't know what it is. Let's just say that's what it is. But the $200,000 house is projected to go up this year 5%. Let's just say 5%. What is 5% of $200,000? It's 10 grand. Okay, $10,000 divided by 12 is what? It's $850 a month. So your $2,000 payment minus $850 a month that you're banking is really what? It's $1,150. That is the net effect of what you're paying to live in your own home. That also gives you a tax deduction, gives you a shelter, and is also going to build equity. And then that goes along into Laura's next thing that I've seen on the internet also. We're in a housing bubble right now. I will wait for it to burst. Laura, with that one, again, I would use my lender, but I would also talk about people that run hedge funds, people that are big investors that run hedge funds. Like we're talking $1 trillion hedge funds. Are they generally smart financial people or are they dumb financial people? I would ask this young person that question. They're probably going to answer they're smart. They're running $1 trillion hedge funds, right? What are they buying right now? What are $1 trillion hedge funds buying? The answer is they're buying property. They're buying property. Are they buying commercial property? No. What are they buying? They're buying residences. They're buying apartment buildings and they're buying single family homes. Why would these really smart $1 trillion hedge funds be buying properties if we're in a housing bubble that is going to burst? And you make them answer those questions. How about you, Jared, Alex? Any answers to those questions? The interest rates were high with our parents, but inflation wasn't as good, or we're in a housing bubble right now. I'm going to wait for it to burst. You guys have any answers to that for Laura? It's a great question, Laura.
Yeah, I'll hit on the housing bubble question. I think, yeah, I've heard that before as well. I think you really have to dive into, all right, what is a housing bubble? What does a crash look like? Well, a crash would indicate that there's a massive oversupply of properties that are going to influx into the market over a short period of time. How did that happen back in 2008? Well, lending wasn't regulated and now it's regulated. So that kind of pushes that aside. And then the other thing is the lack or the increase in generational people that are wanting to buy homes. That's also an influx in the market, which was not the case in 2008. So those are kind of the two factors that I lean on when it comes to talking about the potential crash. Is those are two factors that did not exist back then, that are on our side, or, you know, advantageous with kind of counteracting that argument. So,
And it's great, Jared. You asked them the question: are we in a oversupply situation right now with homes? Ask them that question and make them answer their own question. The answer is absolutely not, right? And then you walk them through the idea of supply and demand. So that's great. Jared, how about you, Alex? How do you answer that?
Yeah, so I just tell a story on the bubble stuff. And I just say, I mean, this is a story. Yeah, I felt the same way back in 2017. I saw a bunch of rental investment opportunities in secondary houses that I was interested in purchasing, but I was afraid of that bubble popping as well. And that was even as a realtor who'd been in the business since 2012. And I waited and waited and waited. And then one day I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to get off the couch and buy an investment property. I own 19 rental doors now. That's 12 residences, and every single one is appreciated in value over time. And if I had to buy the same house again today, it would cost way more today than it would have back then. And they'll say, well, you know, what about this? And it's like, this property is worth this much more. This property is worth that much more. And that's simply by owning it and letting the market work its thing. Could ask the question on some of the properties is, would a couple $100,000 of equity change your life? That's an easy one. I mean, look, if we all believe that homeownership is one of the easiest paths, the best paths to financial freedom and wealth, and we believe that homeownership is an investment, that's the other side of this that we haven't even touched on. People pushing back on payments and interest rates and things like that. You're still, you know, Jim, your example was awesome about getting it down to $1,100, but that didn't even include paying into the equity position of the loan. So when you're creating two ways of gap on those types of things.
Well,
And go ahead.
And Alex, too, your answer is also answering the top question, because that's a very valid point, Laura, because we do have really high inflation right now. But the only way to offset that is real estate investment, real estate equity. It's the renters that are having to do the high inflation, and they're not building any wealth behind that.
Yeah,
So,
historically, inflation has driven housing prices also. And one way to tread water with the inflation is to be in the real estate game and allow the inflation that's also going to drive up the cost of housing, along with the cost of everything else. You're at least at minimum treading water, where if you're renting, how much rebate is your landlord going to give you back at the end of your rental term? How much cash are they giving you back?
as an investor, I can assure you, we don't give any.
We don't get any back. You barely get your deposit back, right?
Maybe some security deposit if it's warranted, but
if you baby it, you get your security
well,
deposit.
and that's here's the other side of that question too, is like, when you buy a property, you have traditionally, if you're buying a 30-year fixed mortgage, 20-year fixed, 15-year fixed, it's fixed. The interest is fixed. Your payments outside of your cost of insurance and your taxes are fixed. You have a ballpark of a fixed payment that you're prepared for. When's the last time your landlord increased rent? Typically, it's less than 12 months ago, and it's coming again and again and again. Because every time my taxes go up, what do? Hey, at the end of your term, we have to raise rent 10%. Okay, right. Sounds good. We don't want to move. Those are real conversations that if you're getting those pushbacks from buyers that, you know, you need to be having.
That's great, because look, a third of the buyers out there right now are first-time home buyers, everyone. And I can tell you, there is a push on the social media sites right now telling them to wait and that it's a bad move. And when you dig into the people that are telling you to wait, telling them to wait, most of them are people who own apartments and want those millennials to keep renting from them.
I want to talk about something else real quick.
Go ahead.
On inventory shortage and interest rates that we haven't talked about. There are new construction neighborhoods and developments in our area where Daniel Leeper from our team just put a buyer that was looking at a 7.5% interest rate. I think they were pre-approved to let's just call it $250,000 or $300,000. He put them in a new build at a 4.75% interest rate, brand new house, and the payment difference after it's all said and done is $600 difference. There's education that you could be giving your clients on interest rate buy downs that maybe a seller can do it, or maybe they can do it if they have closing cost credit that they may be getting from a seller, but also putting somebody in a brand new house understanding that, hey, look, this may not be in a neighborhood that you had desired, but I can get you a brand new house with a rate at 4.6% that you're not going to have 19 other people trying to buy. Would you entertain something like that? Like those types of questions would make somebody go, wait, hold on, I can get a new house for an interest rate under 5, you know, and
Alex, that actually overcomes all the rest of them. The appraisal gap, waiving inspections, request for remedy, refusing to go over lists and bidding war. That's a great Band-Aid. I would definitely add that for all of those. And if
well,
and it was short with a shortage in inventory, some of the conversations we're having to have, even with our second, third time homeowners, is that maybe we need to do an interim house. Sure, I know you want to buy your 20-year home, you know, your 20-year old, your 30-year home, but let's buy something smart, make sure it's a good investment, and then let's look at reselling it in 2 to 3 years. And inventory, or I mean, new builds are perfect for that.
I
I
think
call it
the
the
other
myth of the
thing,
dream home. Go
yeah,
ahead.
well, God, I was just going to say that is like a lot of my clients, they're going on their second and third home. And look, I get it. Moving is very challenging. It is stressful. But look, the amount of equity that folks have tied up in their property, like you're telling me that you wouldn't trade a couple $100,000 in a brand new house or a new opportunity for some pain of a couple weeks in $5,000 to a moving company. I mean, that's some of that stuff is like scaling back the overwhelming monster of what moving really is and helping them understand, look, we have moving companies, we have inspection companies, we've got this, we've got personal organizers that are come to your house and help you set up your home. I totally understand that it's painful to move, where these people who are 30, 32, 33 years old are going, I don't want to move again. You're going to leave all this equity packed in your house that you'll never be able to get out again because you don't want to do this. I think it's scaling that down and helping them see the value in moving. I mean, if you talk to some of the wealthiest people in the world, it's people that move over and over and over and up and up and up, and they just keep rolling their equity and rolling. And yeah, you can do home equity lines of credit, but honestly, for a lot of folks, those aren't wise to touch because they never have an outlet to get them paid off. So I think some of that is educating them of what moving really is. It's a way for you to continue to invest at a higher scale, while in turn pulling hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity out of a house. And two, if you're moving, you're improving your family's situation. So if there's a reason that you're moving, it could be a school system, it could be I want to be closer to family. There's so many things. We're going to wear a golden handcuff of an interest rate because we're afraid to do that. Like, let's keep the main thing the main thing. You want to go be closer to your parents, or you want to accomplish this, or you're getting job transferred. That's the main thing. Throw the interest rate out the door. Let's focus on that. How do we accomplish it easy and as most convenient for you as possible? And I think being trusted advisors is what it takes to sit down and go, I'm paving the road for you. Just get in the buggy and we're going there together.
With first-time home buyers, I would ask them this: how old will you be 26 years from now? And you ask them that question. And let's say they're 30 right now. Well, I'd be 56. Well, just so you have an idea, waiting for the interest rates to come down, for 26 straight years, the interest rates were 8.5% or higher for 26 years in this country. What if they go up from here? Like, what if this is the best rates we're going to see for the next 26 years? Are you not going to buy a home for 26 years? And sometimes you can put people into a perspective mode by asking them a question that breaks their concentration. Tony Robbins calls it, right? You've got to snap their state. You got to break their state that they're in and get them to think. And you do it by asking questions. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I got today from the panel today, which was a great job, by the way, everybody today, was this: we ask questions to educate and understand. I love that, Alex, the help me understand. Get them to talk, right? We listen. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them in that proportion. We ask a question and then we listen to understand, to get educated, as to find out where they're coming from and ask them questions to walk them down the path. The second thing I got out of it is that if you're newer, get with a mentor and practice some of these objections if you're hearing them and they're not working them, or send it over. Send a screenshot of the objection if it came across as a text and say, how would you respond to this? We'll use feel, felt, found, right, to tell stories. Understand how you feel, Others have felt the same way, but here's what they found. And that way you're on their side on that. But 1 minute for each person. Anything you guys want to add before we jump off? Stacey, Alex, Jared, anything you want to add that we missed? It was a great call today on this.
I
Hopefully
think
everybody
one
enjoyed
quick
it.
point with people that are
Yeah.
working, especially some of our newer agents, refusing to go over list. Keep in mind, just like in an appraisal, list price is an opinion of value. So focus on what the house's market value is, not the list price, because it very well could be a strategy that the agent used to list it lower. So definitely keep that in mind. Get your buyers off of the list price. I don't want to go over list. Well, what if list is not what the market value is?
Right. That's great. So we, if you guys got something out of this today, you're like, wow, those people from Indiana and Ohio talk so fast. I didn't know farmers talk that fast. You can go to our YouTube channel, and we'll have this posted here later this week. It'll be on there. And you can also find all the other ones. Go ahead and subscribe to it so you're notified when we have it. But here's what we would love for you to do is join us on Mondays. Join us Mondays live and bring a friend with you. Bring a friend. What we find is that we get, oh, good. In the chat box, actually, which you'll be able to download, is all the links to all of our stuff, to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook group, to our Instagram, to our workplace that we have. And then also we have a web page that you can go to that tells you what's going to be coming up. Again, next week, we are going to be, I know I just said a little bit ago, but I'm old. I forgot already what it's going to be. Next week, there it is, our Mastermind Monday. How to boost your income, discover how contractor partnerships can elevate your business. So that will be next Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be great. Go ahead and jump on that, but bring a friend with you. We're growing our group as we go, and we like to hear from other people. Also, if you're an expert on something, if you're an agent out there like, you know what, I got something I could really add to the group, there's a spot on that webpage where you can go and you can suggest a topic. Or you're somebody that's like, man, I really need to learn this. I'd like to hear from what experts say on this. Go ahead and go to that page and suggest a topic, and we'll go from there. Everybody said it was great. Brian Conrad said it was great. Jennifer Eastburn said, great call. Thank you. John Herhold said, bring 2 friends. Keith Jackson, great call, said thank you. Thanks a lot, everybody. We're going to kill the recording,